Hello, welcome to TransByDef. My name is Morgan Fay, and this week's topic is misgendering. So, at first I thought this was going to be kind of a short topic. You know, it sucks, you move on, and you deal with it. But when thinking about it, there's a lot more to it. And that kind of depends on who it's coming from and in what situation. So, let's start with one of the more scary forms of misgendering, which is when people do it insistently and on purpose. These people are hostile to you. They're hostile to who you are, to what you are. So these are people who are just, because of the social situation, they're not using slurs. Otherwise, they probably would be. So you have to be understanding that these people are not going to be swayed. These people don't like you, and you're not going to do anything to be able to change that. So you need to remove yourself from the situation as quickly as possible, with as much grace and as safely as you can. You might want to let your inner bitch out during that process, and if you can safely do so, then what the hell. But understand that these people are hostile, so it's important to realize that these are the same people that can do really bad things. And unfortunately, I know firsthand. So make sure that if you have to put yourself in an exposed position after dealing with individuals like this, that you do it safely, you do it with others, you do it in a group, or you take time to make sure that they've left the environment. Now, that's assuming that it's like a random encounter or something along those lines. Sometimes, unfortunately, we get these kinds of misgendering in situations that we have to be involved in. Excuse me. Such as work or with family or friends of friends. In these kinds of situations, you're still not going to be able to change the individual who is purposely misgendering you. They are attacking you. They're just doing it in a more socially accepted way. So what you need to do is you need to be able to change the social environment that this is happening in. We're never going to be able to reach these people, but the people around them can. And this is where allies can come in real handy. If you can let other people who are accepting or who are tolerant or who are supporting you realize what's going on and how it's making you feel, they can change the environment for you to make sure that if someone purposely misgenders you like that, that they're exposed as the asshole they truly are, and that it's not going to be socially acceptable, so they'll have to change. Now, also in work environments, check the policies, because sometimes you might be lucky to live in a state or county where there is protection, or in my case, even though I don't live in such a location, there's still policies for work, our particular company, which protects us. So that can actually be an aid in order to help change the environment where you experience these kind of hostile misgendering. And sometimes you might be stuck in an environment that you can't change. So you might need to make something more drastic. You might need to look for another job. You might need to cut off ties with certain members of family. Whatever is going to be better for your safety, both physical and emotional. But you also have to take financial safety into that. So depending on your situation, you need to weigh your options and realize, come to the conclusion of what's going to be best for you. But you cannot stay in these kinds of situations for a long time, because you're constantly being attacked. And it will wear on you, and even if no matter how strong you think you are, it wears you down and it breaks you down, and it makes your dysphoria come back harder. So, other than these kind of hostile, purposeful misgenderings, we're talking about accidental misgenderings, and who it's coming from makes a big difference. For instance, if we're talking about someone who doesn't know you pre-transition, this is kind of a pain to us, because it means that we got clocked, and doing so it gives us kind of a spike of dysphoria coming back. But you have to make sure that you correct the situation politely with a smile, and most people who are being respectful anyways are going to switch over, and you just make sure it doesn't become a big deal for them. And you don't want to put them uneasy, because then you're going to lose a chance to kind of make a connection, because this is probably the first time they're ever meeting a transgender person. So you don't want to feed into any kind of stereotypes that are out there. So when people misgender you, but they're being respectful, for some reason, no matter how infim you're dressed, people who realize that you might have been a guy before, or lived as a guy before, uh, think that using the word sir is more respectful. Simply correct them. It's ma'am now, thank you, and then give them a smile, and usually it just moves on just fine for that. But you can't let it hit you. Okay, you can't let it bring you down, because what happens is, the more down you get, especially for me, the more stressed I am, the more down I am, the more I get clocked. So that facial expression, that down expression, is actually, it hurts our passability. So it creates a downward spiral. So if you let one misgendering get to you, then you're going to be more likely to be clocked in the future, shortly afterwards, or later that day, and it creates this downward vortex that just will suck you down. So you have to, you have to be strong and get over it and just move on, and realize that it's the respect that is the most important part. Just because you got clocked isn't that big of a deal, as long as the people still respect you for who you are and who you identify as. Correction is okay when people actually take that correction and follow through. So then there's the people who are misgender you and they do you before transition. And for these people, you got to cut them some slack. They're not going to switch over their pronouns use by themselves. Very few will actually do that. For some reason, they, like I said, no matter if you're coming to work in a skirt, they're still going to call you sir, because it might be disrespectful to call you ma'am. I don't get the reasoning, but it seems to be how things are. So you're going to need to tell them you need to switch over pronouns. Do it politely, do it pleasantly, and do it low key, because these people are already kind of going to be walking on eggshells around you. This is probably the first time they're ever dealing with someone who's trans, and they're not going to know how to react. They're not going to know how careful they have to be around you, and they're going to get their cues from you. So you don't want to have this kind of high tension environment. So you need to kind of be relaxed and kind of calm about it, and laid back. Let them know you're switching over, and when people make mistakes, and they're going to make mistakes, lots of them, just a simple correction, and they'll get kind of flustered, and you go, it's no big deal. I realize it's going to take some time. As long as you're trying, that's all that matters, and that works. There's still some people at work that I don't relate with on a regular basis, but me pre-transition, they'll misgender me occasionally. But the people I work with on a regular basis, they haven't slipped in a very long time. So that process does work. It takes time, and unfortunately, that time can be a little painful in between. But realize that the most important thing is the respect you get for who you are trying to be. You're trying to be yourself. You're living your life now, and as long as they are respecting that, even if they make mistakes, it's no big deal. It really isn't. So then, after you begin to do all your legal name changes, and if you're lucky enough to be able to switch over some gender markers, you'll get another kind of misgendering, and that's documents. I thought I switched over everything, and then I get a piece of mail in that's got my old name on it from a Quinta Inns from where I stayed at like 3 years ago. It's junk mail, but it's still got the old name, so it kind of pisses you off. But you're going to get junk mail with other people's names on it, so you gotta kind of take it as how important it really is. It isn't, for the most part. Now, occasionally you might get an important piece of document that's got the old name or the old identity on it, and that you want to actually correct as quickly as possible, because unfortunately information webs, it's a web, they cross over, so you don't want that kind of corrupted data to infect everything else that you're working on. So the important part when it comes to documents is pay attention to what's important and what isn't, and act accordingly. Fix what's important, and don't stress over every little piece of junk mail that might have an old name on it. That person doesn't live here anymore. That's just the attitude you need to take. And then the final kind of misgendering I want to talk about is actually the most painful. It's perhaps I haven't really heard anyone else talk about it, so perhaps it might be a little bit of a taboo, but it's self-misgendering. And this is probably one of the biggest hits to our identities, because as soon as we self-misgender, we're begin thrown into that questioning loop. Well, am I really trans? Is this all in my head? I mean, if this is truly who I am, then why am I misgendering myself? And these kind of questions, they're harmful. They tear us down, and they tear us down from the inside, where we have no walls to protect us. And you have to understand that self-misgendering is going to happen because, unlike other people who have to relate to us with pronouns on a regular basis, or who are using our names on a regular basis, are talking, usually using the words, me, I, stuff like that. So it's not very common where we actually have to use pronouns for ourselves, whether we're talking about ourselves or whether we're talking in our head. So it takes more time for us, because for myself, I've got 3+ decades of referring to myself as male, and it takes time to break that. And while the people I work with, my friends, my family, they do so on a regular basis, it's infrequent for me. And when I do misgender myself, and it does happen, unfortunately, it hurts. It's a big doubt, and you can't let that happen. You've got to move past it. You got to realize it is what it is. It's just a rote memory that you're using. You're using the experiences you've had for a long time. It's not a statement that what you're doing is wrong, or that you're incorrect, or that you're not really trans, and that what you feel isn't what you feel, and who you are isn't who you are. It's just a misstep of language. And taking that into consideration, you can also look how people who knew you pre-transition really need to be cut some slack, because it's going to take some time. And the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to create a hostile environment, whether it's with them or whether it's within yourself. You have come to this decision that you're trans, that this is who you are. So let no slip of vocabulary make you doubt that. And that's a bit of a hypocrite for me, because that's what I do every time I do misgender myself. But it shouldn't happen for me, and I'm trying to get over it. And I'm just trying to be myself and not let other things affect that, whether it's external or internal. So I think that's that for this week's topic of misgendering. I hope to see you next week on TransByDef.